Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are diving deep into the work of Dr. Mehdi Mirsaeidi, and we're going to tackle a question that's, it's reshaping everything we thought we knew about technology and ourselves. As machines get smarter and smarter, what happens to our conscience?
All right, so here it is, the big one. And this isn't just a tech question about code or circuits. Not at all. It's actually a philosophical debate that humans have been having for centuries. It's just that now it's getting this massive high-tech upgrade. Okay, Section 1, the birth of conscience, a light from within. So, to really figure out where we're heading, we've got to look back at where we've been. How did we as humans even come up with the idea of right and wrong in the first place? This is where Dr. Mirsaeidi's work gets really interesting. He has this fascinating take on ethics. He says it's not some rule book that society hands you. No, it's a light from within. Think about it. It's born in that split second of hesitation, that internal tug of war when you know you could do something wrong, but you actively choose not to. He says that moment, that's the birthplace of conscience.
And this isn't some brand new idea. It's got really deep roots. For centuries, you can see this common thread running through Western philosophy. You had Plato looking for harmony in the soul, Aristotle talking about the golden mean, and then Kant with his idea of an inner duty. They all came at it from different angles, but they all landed on the same crucial point. Ethics comes from inside us. It's a product of human consciousness.
But then, along comes Nietzsche, and he just shatters that entire way of thinking. He basically said, hold on a second. Morality isn't some divine light or some pure rational law. He argued it's a human invention, something we created out of our own weaknesses and power struggles. And here's the kicker. If we invented it, that means we can uninvent it, or even more scary, reinvent it.
Which brings us to our next section, the cold calculation of code. Mathematics in the guise of a conscience. You see, Nietzsche's idea perfectly sets the stage for right now, because we're facing a brand new creator of moral rules, artificial intelligence. And the way it approaches ethics, it's totally different. And honestly, it's kind of chilling. Just take a look at this comparison. It really breaks it down. For us humans, ethics is all about what's going on inside, right? Our intentions, our feelings. It's all about that messy, difficult struggle before we make a choice. But for AI, as it is today, it's the polar opposite. The source is external data. The driver is just calculating the best possible outcome. And the key element, the incredible speed of the choice. It's basically just a high-speed damage calculation, not a real moral reflection.
So, what's the bottom line here? It comes down to one word, will. An algorithm has no will of its own. And Dr. Mirsaeidi makes this incredible point, the ability to sometimes disobey a rule to stay true to its spirit, to know when to bend the rules for a greater good. That is a uniquely human thing. Code just can't do that.
All right, next up, cracks in the digital mirror, humanity's flaws amplified by code. And this is where we run into a really serious problem. Because when you build an intelligence using nothing but our own data, it doesn't just mirror our best side, it holds up a mirror to our deepest, ugliest, most unresolved flaws. And worse, it amplifies them.
And we're not talking about small glitches here. These challenges strike at the absolute core of our society. Let's run through them. First, ingrained bias. All our old prejudices are getting baked right into the future. Then, you've got the end of privacy. What does it mean to have a right to be forgotten in a world that literally never forgets? Third, this huge accountability vacuum. When an algorithm messes up, who's to blame? And finally, all of this leads to a massive crisis of meaning for us. If machines do everything, what's left for us to do?
And this quote from Dr. Mirsaeidi just hits so hard. In the accountability vacuum, guilt becomes ownerless. Think about that. An AI makes a catastrophic mistake, maybe in finance or medicine. So who's at fault? The person who wrote the code, the company that deployed it, the AI itself? When you can't assign blame, when guilt is just floating out there, the entire concept of justice starts to fall apart.
So let's move on to forging a global compass, the world's attempts to write a new moral code. Okay, so in response to all these huge, scary challenges, global organizations have started this monumental task of trying to write a new set of ethical rules for intelligences that aren't even human.
Let's take a look at one of the first big efforts. Back in 2019, the OECD put together this foundational framework.
It's got 5 main principles. First, AI should lead to inclusive growth and well-being. Second, it has to be centered on human values and fairness. Third, transparency and explainability. We need to be able to understand how it makes its decisions. Fourth, it has to be robust, secure, and safe. And finally, number 5, accountability. Someone has to be responsible.
Okay, so fast forward 2 years to 2021, UNESCO comes along and takes this a big step further. They built on what the OECD did and created the very first truly global ethical framework for AI. And they put one thing right at the center of it all, above everything else, protecting human dignity.
Which leads us to our next section, the last human mandate, beyond rules and regulations. Because this is where Dr. Mirsaidi's argument gets really provocative. He looks at all these rules and says, yes, these are great, they're absolutely necessary. But he argues they're missing something deeper, something profoundly human. He actually proposes 2 critical additions that you won't find in any of those official documents, at least not yet. First, he says we have to include an emotional connection, that our relationship with machines can't just be about what they can do for us. And second, and this is a big one, he argues for a firm physical boundary, a hard line in the sand that we must not cross, to stop us from just completely merging our biology with code.
And this really gets to the core of his warning. You might be asking, why does an emotional connection matter so much? Well, think about it. A relationship where one side has feelings and the other side is just calculating, that isn't a real partnership. He says, sooner or later, that kind of relationship always leads to domination.
Which, of course, brings us to the ultimate question. And maybe it's one we can't even answer. Can you actually legislate a conscience? Can any law, any rule, no matter how smart or well-written, ever replicate that genuine, messy, internal struggle that is the very source of a real conscience?
The answer, if there is one, definitely isn't going to be found in parliaments alone. The future of ethics is going to be shaped in universities and in think tanks. It has to be this deep, ongoing conversation between people who almost never talk to each other. Philosophers and engineers, lawyers and psychologists, they all have to work together on this.
And you know, this brings us full circle, right back to the beginning. Ethics isn't in the brain. It's not about raw processing power or finding the right answer instantly. It lives in the hesitation. It's in that brief, uncertain human pause before you make a choice. And that pause, that's the one thing that separates man from machine. So in the end, we're left with this final, really heavy question from Dr. Mirsaeidi, and it's one that's going to define not just the next wave of technology, but the very future of our species. Can we trust an intelligence that has a mind, but no heart?